Book 2, Chapter 2, Part 2. I was walking down the hall thinking about her, wondering who she was, and I stopped. I discovered she was reading me because she flashed me back some curiosity of her own. She was wondering who the hell I was, too. Well, I could tell her so without telling. Her eyes opened a little wider when she heard me without hearing, sitting there in her room, rubbing the bruised top of her foot with her hand. And she opened her mouth slightly like a flower in the sun. And when she looked up, some of the natural distrust was replaced by wonder. I smiled, almost as though we were looking at one another. Then I could go on. I found myself turning a brass knob in my hand. I took a deep breath and entered into a cloud of stale cigarette smoke, with all my concentration on the man who would never steal again, not in the current manifestation, which was sorely in need of a pointed intervention. I wanted to turn back to my new friend and be with her. I was tired, but at first I had to reconfigure some DNA. My friend Freddie told me use it or lose it, which made sense, even if it was an all-too-human soundbite. I remember looking at him like, so what? And he started laughing, realizing I had been around them long enough to second-guess anyone who might option their truisms. After all, I had been brought up human on the opposite coast where, some years ago, Freddie came for me and found me and took me. Of course, I was thrilled to be abducted, really thrilled, and I know how stretched it sounds to call someone who abducted you your friend, some kind of Stockholm Syndrome or some nonsense. The label doesn't fit me. I might have lost my mind a few times, but I always found it right where I left it. You had to lose your mind, I think, because of all the ways the mind gets you in trouble when you walk around thinking about everything. I mean, if you go quiet up there, if you go vacant and lose it, it could actually be a holy experience. But the situation before me was different. Use it or lose it. There would be no sitting in the shadows and waiting to jack someone with a tire iron, you see. If we were wronged, we went direct to the perpetrator and had our particular way with him. I wanted to effect a natural consequence upon my thief. I could read in him that he had a hidden desire to merge with someone and had historically made many abject, fear-driven attempts to do so. The thought being that if he could control someone, he could possess them. I scanned his memories and found he had a history of attempted relationships involving various methods to trick them, talking about an imaginary future until it felt as though it existed, frequent use of the word soulmates, mutuality, anything she was interested in, he feigned interest in, fasting when he had no money for food, looking deep into the eyes, staring at her, long walks, no other means of transportation, exposure to the elements, coupled with long walks, mantras, repeat after me, I love you, inhaling incense made from ground flower petals he got at the dollar store to kill off his body odor in hopes she would sleep with him, planting trees, weeds so he could get her stoned so she would sleep with him, drumming, a nervous habit they shared when they were together, gardening at night, trimming the weeds so he could get her stoned so she would sleep with him. However long the facade might last, it was only a facade in the end, and they would inevitably come to their senses. A sad case. I looked around me once the smoke from his last cigarette began to clear, and the blue light emitted from the television into his little room revealed a treasure trove of stolen belongings. Seeing my bike elicited enough spirit in me to commence. There she was, my bicycle, not to be confused with any other bicycle, made of parts of many bikes all fused together into something on two wheels with a few gears and a few dozen spokes, and a seat on which I could place my fair self and ride.